A silence so loud it feels engineered. A royal story so tangled that every official explanation seems to create more questions than it solves. And at the center of it all, two children, two names, and a storm of claims that refuses to die down. Because what happens when the most documented monarchy in the world suddenly has gaps where there should be records and whispers where there should be certainty? And why do certain details, small, almost invisible details, keep turning into the biggest points of suspicion? Everything begins with a system that has survived for centuries, a monarchy built on absolute documentation, where every royal birth is supposed to be witnessed, verified, signed off, and displayed to the public without ambiguity. Nothing hidden, nothing uncertain. Every heir written into history with precision. But then comes the disruption, the claims, the contradictions, and the questions that people say should never even exist in the first place.
Archie's and Lilibet's has been signed off by a host of royal daughters. A child called Lily. They exist. I know people would love the whole surrogacy business and all of the speculation and all of the antics. Diana Mountbatten Windsor to the world. Lily was born on Friday, June 4th.
In the British royal family, almost nothing happens in private. Births are announced on golden easels outside Buckingham Palace. Every heir is documented, verified, witnessed, and written into law. The whole institution was built on one principle, that the people on that family tree are exactly who they say they are. So why are two children currently 6th and 7th in line to the British throne almost completely invisible? Lady Colin Campbell, the woman who told the world the truth about Princess Diana before anyone else dared to say it out loud, has now issued a direct ultimatum to Buckingham Palace. Provide absolute proof that Meghan physically bore those children or remove Archie and Lilibet from the line of succession entirely. The palace has not responded. And the reason this story will not go away starts with a single 3-digit number on a government document. And once you see it, the official story never looks the same again. The process has always followed the same path. Announcement, verification, documentation, signatures from physicians personally attached to the royal household, a bulletin on a golden easel outside Buckingham Palace, the name, the weight, the time, the date on the record before the nation. William was born that way. Harry was born that way. George, Charlotte, and Louis. All of them entered the world with the full weight of that institution behind them. No ambiguity, no gaps, no questions. Archie and Lilibet are a different story entirely. And the person who has spent more time pulling on that thread than anyone else is Lady Colin Campbell. Lady C is not a tabloid commentator. She is a New York Times best-selling author with decades of access to senior figures inside the royal household. And suddenly, what looked like a stable tradition begins to feel like a pattern people never questioned until now. Because when you start comparing timelines, documents, and public statements, the contradictions don't just appear, they multiply. And every layer pulled back reveals another question waiting underneath it.
Nonsense from these people in the jungle, and I love her for that. Is she as bossy in real life? Does she boss you around?
The woman who published the truth about Princess Diana's private life years before any mainstream outlet would touch it. Her track record makes dismissing her genuinely difficult. In 2025, she published Rogue Royal, and in every interview surrounding it, she did not hedge. She asked the question directly, demanded the palace answer it, and gave her reasoning in full. Her argument is not emotional. It is constitutional. She pointed out that the palace was tendered birth certificates, listing Harry as father and Meghan as mother. On paper, that appears to close the matter. But in the United Kingdom, you cannot compel someone to provide a DNA sample without their consent. There is no legal mechanism to force verification. If those documents contain a falsehood, proving it through lawful means is nearly impossible. The law in this case is not a safeguard. It is a wall. She also raised a specific and uncomfortable question about Archie's birth. What the point of lying to members of your own family and to the media about the time and location of that birth? Because the palace did not just blur the details, they actively withheld them in ways that broke from every precedent the institution had ever set. And then she pointed to something almost no one else was discussing. Even after receiving the birth certificates, the palace took many months to formally add Archie and Lilibet to the line of succession on its official website. This world and his newly obtained birth birth certificate, it shows Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor arrived May. And that's where the unease begins to spread further, because delays in systems that are usually immediate don't just create confusion. They create suspicion. A system known for absolute precision suddenly showing hesitation becomes its own kind of question mark. Then comes the detail that ignites even more debate: the mismatch between official narratives and administrative codes, something most people would never notice unless someone pointed it out. And once pointed out, it cannot be unseen. In the United States, birth registration codes are supposed to align with location. Simple, clean, standard. But when anomalies appear, whether clerical or not, they become fuel for interpretation. And interpretation in a story like this spreads faster than clarification ever could. And just when it seems like the narrative is stabilizing, another layer breaks open. A memoir, a personal account, a timeline told in intimate detail that begins to clash with geography itself. Because when personal storytelling meets physical distance, math becomes the unexpected witness.
This world. In his newly obtained birth certificate, it shows Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor arrived May.
The memoir is where the cracks became visible, but the verification system that should have prevented those cracks from forming in the first place, the one that has protected the British monarchy for over a century, was already gone. For over a century, the British monarchy has had a system, not an informal tradition, a formal protocol with legal roots stretching back 300 years, designed specifically to ensure that no one could ever place a false heir on the British throne. When a royal baby is born, the sovereign's own physicians attend, not a private doctor chosen by the parents. Doctors whose professional obligation runs directly to the crown. They are present, they verify, and when it is done, they sign a medical bulletin confirming the birth placed on an ornate easel outside Buckingham Palace for the public to see. The name, the time, the weight, the date, the signatures. The golden easel is not ceremony. It is a legal safeguard rooted in one unchanging principle. The heir must be born of the body, not registered through a court order. Born physically verifiably with witnesses William, Harry, George, Charlotte, Louis. Each time without exception, the bulletin appeared, the signatures were present, and the protocol held. When Archie born in May 2019, the bulletin was posted, but the physician's signatures were absent. The palace explained the announcement had been made too quickly and the paperwork had not caught up. Lady Cal called that out immediately. In over 100 years of royal births, the speed of an announcement had never once resulted in missing signatures. The protocol existed precisely so that speed and emotion could not compromise documentation. The explanation did not answer the question. It redirected it. And once that redirection becomes part of the record, it becomes another thread people start pulling. Because every explanation that doesn't fully explain invites further scrutiny. And scrutiny in this case has only intensified.
Diana on Friday. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle announcing her birth to the world 48 hours later.
The moment that silence settles in, it doesn't fade, it thickens, as if every unanswered question is building weight behind closed doors that the public can't see. And the story begins to shift from speculation into something far more uncomfortable. Not what is proven, but what refuses to be clarified, no matter how loudly it is asked. Because now the narrative is no longer just about documents or timelines, it is about what happens when institutions known for precision stop behaving in predictable ways, and when every attempt at closure produces another layer of ambiguity instead. And inside that ambiguity, every detail becomes a signal, every absence becomes a clue, and every refusal to respond becomes part of the story itself. The most explosive part of this entire saga, according to those who question the official silence, is not one single document or one single statement. It is the accumulation, the pattern of irregularities that seem small individually but begin to feel coordinated when viewed together through the lens of public suspicion. And in that atmosphere, even ordinary life decisions of individuals tied to the situation become interpreted as something far more loaded than they might ever have been intended to be.
Rachel Meghan, Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex, and chose her job as Princess of the United States.
Melissa Drake, a well-regarded OBGYN with a long-established practice in Santa Barbara, California, respected in her field, known to her patients. The kind of doctor who builds a practice over years through reputation and referrals. She is the medical professional tied to Lilibet's birth. And shortly after the birth announcement broke publicly, Doc Melissa Drake closed her practice without warning, without a formal statement to her patients, without any explanation that addressed the timing of what she was walking away from. She stepped entirely out of public life. The explanations that circulated followed a familiar pattern: retirement, relocation, personal reasons. None of them answer the one question that sits at the center of all of this. Why then? The answer that will will not go away is the ENDA, a non-disclosure agreement, so comprehensive that remaining visible in public life would require her to either confirm or deny things she is legally prohibited from discussing. And that is where the speculation deepens again, because once secrecy becomes part of the narrative, everything around it starts to get reinterpreted through that lens, whether fairly or not. In parallel, attention shifts back toward the royal institution itself, where insiders and commentators suggest something more strategic may be happening behind the curtain. Not confusion, not absence, but calculated containment, a controlled silence, a deliberate refusal to engage in a cycle of public contradiction that would only amplify attention further. And according to those interpretations, what looks like avoidance is actually a long-term institutional strategy, one designed not to react but to hold position until external momentum eventually burns itself out. But that explanation too raises its own questions, because silence in a monarchy built on visibility is never neutral. It always communicates something, even if unintentionally. At the same time, the legal and constitutional layer of the discussion continues to expand in public commentary. The idea that succession rules written centuries ago may not fully align with modern reproductive realities becomes a point of debate, not in courts, but in conversations, media analysis, and political whispers. The absence of formal challenge does not erase the conversation, it simply relocates it into informal spaces where interpretation runs faster than verification. And that is where the tension grows further, because when legal clarity is absent, narrative fills the gap, and narrative, once formed, rarely retracts itself easily.